Elahi, you said that Soon-Young was not able to be here this morning, but she did send us a video.
Absolutely.
That I
Yeah,
shall we go ahead with that?
Yeah, sure. She sent an email to us and apologized for not being here. Her trip had to change to Korea. So she, at the last minute before her flight, she recorded this video and sent it to us. I'm really grateful for her commitment to be here, and we're going to show her video. Thank you. Lauren?
Hi, everyone. I apologize, but unforeseen circumstances and had to change my travel plans. I have to leave for Korea tonight, which means I can't be with you tomorrow. But I wanted to at least leave a few thoughts with Elahi. First of all, I'd like to thank Wynn for inviting me to say a few words about my vision for the local and global and where I see the campaign going. So I will do that in this recording, and I would love to listen to the recording of your meeting afterwards so that we can have a discussion. So Elahi asked me to address the issue of my vision for the local and global parts of this campaign, partly because I think what she saw at CSW with a lot of activity and interest. So the first thing I thought about was, what is a vision? How does it come to anyone? And in my case, quite truthfully, I don't have a vision of my own. What I find myself doing is watching and gathering information about the vision of others. And that includes a lot of what you guys are doing in the United States, trying in our project, in our History and Futures project, to see what your trend is and what your innovations are, all the way from Nancy's wonderful pledges with public leaders, other people doing work with law schools, and lots of exciting things coming out of this country. But in the global place, I wanted to let you know about 3 examples that I have learned about recently. And I say that the visions come to me. I watch them, and from that, I try to gather some lessons that will be useful for everyone. What happened at CSW was that Esther Egobian-Michela, who is the vice chair of the CEDAW committee from Nigeria, approached me long before CSW, shortly after our 3rd report to the CEDAW committee, and said that she wanted to do something very specific with our project and to bring the Cities for CEDAW campaign to her country. How she wanted to do that at the time was not exactly clear to her. So I probed her and kind of tried to listen more carefully, have discussions with her. And at the end, what she wanted to do was to have a very large event co-sponsored with Nigeria as an official UN meeting with the Cities for CEDAW History and Futures project, with the CEDAW committee, and with the government of Nigeria and a few other partners. So what happened is that she brought an agenda, which was very interesting, because she wanted her Minister of Women's Affairs to commit to an agreement, a signed agreement with us, to be able to say that from the highest level, Nigerian government would be willing to support a Cities for CEDAW campaign. She then got 7 other states, heads of directors or governors of those states, to commit to the idea that they would also sign this agreement and that they would start pilot projects in their own states. That was an extraordinarily ambitious thing. And what I will share with Elahi and you all later is the YouTube video of that session that we had with Nigeria. Some of you were there. I know that Gail was there, others as well from LA County. And it was a wonderful celebration with the idea that the agreement was not really a legally binding instrument. It is a general, very general agreement, the text of which I will also share later after this meeting, that simply says that we commit on both sides to help each other and to make this thing happen in Nigeria. What is interesting about this and the vision that this group, the governors of the 7 states, the Minister of Women's Affairs, as well as the CEDAW committee members, Nala Haider was with us, and a number of other CEDAW members. And what is special is that their vision is for a national campaign. So this is very ambitious. Nigeria actually ratified CEDAW in 1985. They have 220 million people, 500 languages. And yet this is what they want to do. Why? Because Esther's vision was the localization of CEDAW with the SDGs, with a very strong focus on their priorities, which included climate change. So the strategy that she wanted to see was to work top down and bottom up at the same time, because she said, even after ratification, Nigeria had not really localized CEDAW. And so this was a chance for them to do that. What's interesting also that they very quickly committed to the idea of very rigid, disciplined approach with standardized indicators and data, partly because when they do pilot projects, they're going to have to prove to the rest of the government and donors that this is actually having an impact. Now, those of you who have been working on the campaign for some time know that actually showing impact may not happen for decades, actually, because it can be a slow process. But it's very important to try to aim for that. And that ambition, I think, is something that we can learn from her. What is also interesting is because they are working top down, they have committed financing for these pilot projects. And that was very interesting. The second example that I can share with you came from Cardiff. A woman who is the former parliamentarian of the European Union is now political advisor to the Minister of Affairs in Wales. And she approached us saying that United Kingdom had ratified CEDAW in 1986. Her city, the population, Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales, with a population of more than 380,000 people, has been working very hard on women's human rights. And she sees the Cities for CEDAW campaign as a roadmap for them to complete an agenda. And they have very innovative things going on, such as a charter or a pact for future generations in which they include the principles of CEDAW. In 2026, what she would like to see is Cardiff being the center of a UK-wide campaign, as they will celebrate the 40th anniversary of the ratification of CEDAW in the UK. So that again is interesting because ultimately she wants to move from her city to all cities of the UK. And it's just starting as an idea, but we're watching that to see what she comes up with. The third one is at a smaller level, but the president of WILF in Lebanon, who works in a southern city of Lebanon, realized that Lebanon had ratified CEDAW in 1991, but with the post-conflict reconstruction and her own city government going through a change in administration, and the mayor is a new mayor, she wanted to tie CEDAW localization with the localization of the women, peace, and security agenda. That is a wonderful and interesting idea for a post-conflict, what she hopes is a post-conflict situation. Furthermore, she wants to really bring CEDAW to the rural area. And that fits very well with something that UN Habitat had this morning, that I joined, which was a discussion of stakeholders on the new urban agenda. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can get involved in that. So a rural-urban continuum, the idea of a regional planning approach for CEDAW is something that she would like to see. Ultimately, what do we see happening, which I think is also happening here, although we don't often talk about it that way? And that is a new concept of multilateralism. That multilateralism, the discussion between governments, the agreements, the Beijing Platform for Action, CEDAW, all of these global agreements need now to be multi-layered at different levels, including the IPU, International Parliamentarians Union needs to be involved, cities, governors, all the way down to the local level. And that is the trend which I think the Cities for CEDAW campaign can latch onto and benefit from. The other idea is that we need to look at how CSW can help us do this. And I did a statement at the last consultation with the two co-chairs. The facilitator is Ambassador Williams from St. Kitts Ambassador Williams from Ireland no, here we are. So Ambassador Williams from St. Kitts and Ambassador Miffin from Ireland. So the idea is that CEDAW can help us because it can focus more on using the Beijing Platform for Action for policy review, but that they must include human rights as the accountability mechanism for that, which is then legally binding, and bringing the SDGs into the discussion. Localization for us is something that we can discuss as part of the CSW revitalization reform. So I have some discussion questions for you I'd like to share. One is the power of writing letters. Ilahi Win wrote a letter of congratulations to the Minister of Women's Affairs of Nigeria, and I was able to share that in the group, WhatsApp organizing group, and they were so excited to get something from the United States. In the United States, we have the possibility to remind our mayors and city council members and other NGOs about the CEDAW resolutions, declarations, and ordinances, which happened because, as you know, many of these administrations now have changed. I think that we can do this quietly. In the current climate, it is very, we can debate whether or not we want to be very, very open about it or to do the work quietly, carefully, but very strategically. So consider the idea of a letter writing campaign. We're happy to share a template of some kind, or you can do your own templates and think about writing letters to our mayors and city council members. And if you want to reach out to sister cities internationally, maybe that is something that I think some of you had discussed that before. Maybe Mary and some of the others had discussed that possibility, which I think is really interesting. Can you also think about maybe organizing regionally? Is it interesting? You know, the Women's Bureau of the Labor Department is the only equivalent we have of Ministries of Women's Affairs. I think that we can see that it's going to basically be dismantled, disempowered, but it has a regional structure. And I've always thought that it would be very important if we're going to do multi-layered multilateralism, that we start thinking about connecting with the federal government as their structure. My great hope and my instinct tells me that in 3 years we are going to see a great change in the presidency and in what happens in Washington, D.C. And we need to prepare now for that. So let's think about what we can do to creatively and take advantage of the time that we have. The other suggestions I have, the third thing I will share with Ilahi to share with you, are some of the organizations that I think we can connect to globally. One is the local authorities and mayors organization called the UCLG, which is the umbrella organization for that. I mentioned UN Habitat, the World Urban Forum, which is a global gathering of city leaders with a new urban agenda. And UN Habitat has a very strong department now on the localization of the SDGs with a human rights framework and with gender equality and women's human rights as the center. So if you are interested in that, that is one of the questions. Are you interested? And if so, please let Ilahi know and let us know so that we can share more information with you on that. So again, I apologize, I have to do it this way, but thanks so much for the work that you're doing, and let's connect very soon in real time. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Soon-Young for those thoughtful reflections on what people are doing in other places and what we might be doing here. So